Hi everyone, I'm Christophe Choo with Coldwell Banker Global Luxury Real Estate in Beverly Hills, California. And I want to talk a little bit today about the process and the steps that go into play the last 3, 4, 5 days before closing a real estate transaction here in California. And what I realized, having closed an escrow yesterday, that oftentimes me as an agent, especially after 32 years, where this is all I do every day since I was 18 years old, I know nothing other than really real estate and how that all works, and I'm very proficient at it. I really know the process. I anticipate the issues, the problems. Since I've pretty much experienced almost everything that can happen, you kind of know what to expect. However, as a buyer and seller, quite often they don't know. So I thought I would do this video to help educate the people out there, buyers and sellers, as to the process and what kind of happens before escrow actually closes. What are those last final steps, those last few days that get to that final closing? Now, every transaction is a little bit different, and in this particular case, I'm going to talk specifically about this transaction that we just closed. So it was a home here in Beverly Hills, and it was a quick 30-day escrow, and it was financed, which is unusual. Most of the deals and transactions here in Beverly Hills are most often for cash. I would say a good 90% of the transactions I work on are all cash sales. But when a loan's involved, it's a little bit different. So in this case, basically the big push happened about a week before the closing. We closed on Tuesday, and so what happened before that is this. So the contingencies were all removed, and that's the period of time where the buyer has 7 days, 10 days, 14 days to do any and all inspections on the home. That was all done, all signed off and approved, and luckily we were able to get that all signed off without a single dollar of credit being requested by the buyer or being given by the seller. So we negotiated a price at the sale. It was an over asking price sale, and throughout the inspections they had all the reports, and they did not request or renegotiate the price, which is a great thing. Then the next step is that the loan was approved, and the loan is a process. The buyers have to be qualified. We have to provide clear title to the property itself, provide that to the lender, and then lastly the property has to appraise. So they send out their own independent appraiser to appraise the value of the home to confirm it does appraise at the sales price. Now, in 32 years, it's happened a couple of times, maybe twice, where the property didn't appraise, and in that case, a buyer can request a second or even a third appraisal to see if that comes in and negotiate that out or work that out. Sometimes it comes in higher, sometimes it doesn't, but that's another video, another story. So all contingencies are removed. In this case, the loan was approved, and last Wednesday we're like, okay, we're closing next Tuesday. We need to kind of get this all together. So when there's a loan involved, basically the buyer has to sign a disclosure. Once that disclosure is signed, depending on the lender, then there's a 3-day waiting period before they can sign the loan docs. So basically, I think it was last Thursday, the buyers went into escrow and signed all of the loan documents, and that has to be done in front of a notary. Once that's done, it gets all sent back to the lender. The lender and the escrow calculate the final closing funds required from the buyer, because the buyer has to put in their down payment. Let's say they're putting 30% down on a $2 million home. So they would have to put in their $600,000 in cash, plus their closing costs, escrow fees, whatever fees are associated with their part of the purchase, that has to be included. So loan docs were signed early last week. Then we got the closing statement to the buyers so that they knew how much money to bring to the escrow. We also get a closing statement for the seller to review, where they can review the sales price, all of their closing expenses, commissions, escrow, title, all of the various parts and pieces of that transaction, and they approve that. So sellers approve the closing statement, buyers approve the closing statement, and the seller initiates and sends their wire to escrow. So basically on Friday, we received word from escrow that all of the buyer's funds were in, which is great. And once those funds are in, then they contact the lender to request the lender to fund the loan. So in this case, a 70% loan, the lender would fund the balance of the $2 million purchase price. Now on Monday, the next day, next business day that is, we get a call from escrow by around 11 o'clock in the morning that the funds were received by the escrow company. Now typically when funds are wired, they need to be received and in escrow usually by around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon the day prior to the scheduled closing, meaning the lender needs to know they need to have all the money in there to balance out the account so they can actually request the closing. So last week loan docs were signed. Next thing was the buyers put their final funds in escrow. Once both parties approved the closing statements and the amount of monies the sellers would receive from the sale, the net proceeds, and the amount of monies the buyers would need to bring to escrow to balance out their down payment, closing costs compared to the amount of the loan, the money that they're borrowing. So that happened again Friday. Monday we received the funding of the loan. We're almost there, almost at the closing. Oh, and one more thing I need to mention. Insurance is not required on a sale in California unless you have a loan involved. If you have a loan on a property, the lenders will require fire and liability insurance. They do not require earthquake insurance, although it's a good idea to have it in California, but it's not a requirement of the lenders that I have seen so far. But the lenders will require proof of insurance in escrow before they will fund the loan. So that's a couple of days before that, the insurance came in, confirming that the buyer had insurance. Also, speaking of which, in most cases, in every deal I've sold the last 32 years, we offer a seller's home warranty from an outside third-party warranty company. We'll let the buyer choose that. So basically what happens is the buyer's agent or the buyer contacts the warranty company, they order the warranty, they get all the extra things that they want, platinum program, the washer, dryer, refrigerator, stove, and they order that. That invoice is sent to escrow, and that's part of the closing costs of the seller, so that's going to be on that statement. So homeowner's insurance is required with the lender. The home warranty is usually a requirement or usually part of the transaction. So once that's all confirmed by escrow, so on Monday, they had all the money in from the buyer from Friday. They had proof of insurance that was done, given to the lender. Then the lender funded the loan on Monday. So Monday morning around 11, we got word all the funds were in escrow, both from the buyer and the lender. So all the money's there. I confirm with escrow, do you have everything you need to close? Yes. Basically, they need the seller's signed notarized grant deeds, the signatures on the closing statements confirming the amounts of the costs of the sale, and they said that they're ready and set to record. So as long as all that takes place the day before, and I think it's around 4 o'clock, the escrow company has to make sure they have all the money, all the paperwork, all the deeds signed and notarized, ready to go. That paperwork is actually loan documents as well. I mean, the loan statements, the loan documents, and the grant deed are all then handed to a title representative to go set up the recording the following day. So how does that work? So everything's ready. It's Monday, you get the call, you're excited because the next day things are going to close. I mean, next morning it's going to close. And how it works here in Los Angeles, all recordings take place at the LA County Recorder's Office, which is in downtown. And basically at 8 a.m. in the morning, there's a line of title representatives there, and I think there's about 10 or 12 title companies in Los Angeles. They stand in line with all of the original documents. They go up to a window, they go to the window and say, we're closing escrow on this property, 321 Elm Street, and they hand them the documents, whatever documents need to be recorded, which is the loan documents and then the grant deed. Those are the primary two items that have to be recorded. They hand them to the desk clerk. The desk clerk reviews the paperwork. Particularly, they're going to review the notary seal to make sure that it's properly notarized, signed, dated, and stamped. Without that, the city can reject the recording and you won't close escrow. So anyways, that takes place at 8 a.m. I've never been physically to a recording. That doesn't happen in California. It's all done with the title reps. And we don't have closings like in the East Coast where you have all the parties sitting in a room transferring documents. It's not like that. It's all done silently and quietly behind the scenes. And that's basically what happens. So that happens at 8 a.m. Now, you would think right away you'd get a phone call at 8:30 saying you've recorded and confirmed the sale. You don't really get that till a few hours later. So around 11:30 on Tuesday, we got the call that we have recorded, escrow has closed, and it's done. It's finalized. Then we just simply have to ensure that the buyer and seller buyers get their keys. We meet them at the house, give them the keys, congratulate them on their new home, and we make sure that the wire goes out to the seller with all their closing net proceeds. So that's kind of the final steps in an escrow. And I just wanted to share this because sometimes it's going to be kind of like, what's happening, how does it work? And I have to call the sellers, email them, explain the process. But I thought I'd do this quick video to share with you how that actually works and what is the process. It's not just a closing. There's a lot of things involved to get it done and get it sold and closed. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're looking to buy or sell, give me a call. It would be my pleasure. I love doing what I do, and let me help navigate you through all of your real estate needs here in Los Angeles and Beverly Hills. Thanks so much, everyone. I'll see you soon.